Greetings, I'm Barbara J. Faison, your mindfulness and meditation ambassador, here with our series, Conversations about Meditation. Today, I'm talking to one of my PIPs, which stands for Partners in Practice, one of the people that meditates with me just about every day, if not every day, and her name is Konstantina Broome. Welcome, Konstantina.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited. I'll tell you a little bit about Konstantina, but we'll get more into Konstantina as we talk to her. Konstantina lives outside the Boston area. She is a certified Vinyasa Flow meditation and yoga instructor, and she also does specific PTSD style type of meditation for people with trauma.
PTSD.
What did I say? PTSD.
It's called, it's okay, because that is something that is actually new into psychiatry, and the world now is taking notice of that. It's the post-traumatic stress disorder. It's PTSD, and my training is in trauma-sensitive yoga.
Right.
So we're mindful of people's trauma and the consequences that leaves us with.
Well, that is a beautiful starting point to move into us talking about meditation, because I love that things are becoming more specific, because we all have different things that we experience. And so if you can be focused in a specific area, I just think that's helpful and most beneficial. Tell me how you got started on this meditation journey. What brought you into meditation? Are you serious, Barbara? I'm going to use this as an opportunity to share one of my practices. It is called Stop and Remind Yourself to Take 3 breaths. So why don't we do that? We're just going to take 3 deep breaths, hand to heart, and out. Deep breath in and out. One last time, deep breath in and out. And that is what I call my set your alarm practice. So I turned off my notifications, but I did not turn that off because it reminds me every day at 12:30 to interrupt myself, to stop and just take a moment to be grateful to have breath in life. So thank you. And you know, I talk about this all the time. So this is where meditation meets life. And that's part of what I want this conversation to be about. You know, just, I'm not going to edit that out. That's part of what I do every day. And it's part of what happens to us every day. We're constantly having things interrupt us. So if we'll get back on track, if we can remember what we were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, that gives me a segue to say that for years I held my breath.
Yes.
And the funny thing is, when I came to US 27 years ago or so, I was somewhere in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I used to work in a daycare, and one of the moms saw me so like crazy, and you know, in my 20s, and she says, "Oh, let's go to my yoga class." And I had no idea what yoga was. And the first thing they did is they gave us some blankets. And I thought, well, the only thing I knew about blankets was that you cover yourself when you sleep. And I was like, oh, great, I'm going to sleep here now.
So take a nap.
So I put it all over me. I was getting a little worried because it didn't really cover me. I was like, what kind of blanket is this? Why are these people so cheap? Blanket is not. And then on top of that, I had to fold the blanket, and I had to breathe, which was the most annoying thing for me. I thought it was the most difficult, the most uncomfortable, annoying. I was getting angry. Why did I come? The blanket doesn't fit. I have to sit. I have ADHD and I have to sit. What is that? I understand half of the English they talk because, you know, it's not my mother tongue. And honestly, when I left, I said, those are some crazy people. Yoga and this breathing and short blankets. I will never do that. That was sometime in 96, I think.
I love it. These yoga and these short blankets and breathing, that breathing stuff. So then how did you journey into becoming
So
that which you were trying to avoid?
somehow I have this message, go to yoga, go to yoga. I went in 2004. My sister pushed me to go. And I went to a studio. I burned myself up because it was Bikram hot yoga. I was like, now they want to kill me. It's like, so I never went back until 2008 or so, that somebody else gave me, I think it was my sister again, gave me a certificate of like 20 classes in yoga. And I had an injury because I was doing some heavy duty exercise that, the intervals and stuff. So my PT said, you should do yoga. And you should hold your breath here because it expands this and send the breath to this certain part of your body and all kinds of things that were foreign to me. So my sister sent me back to the same studio. I found the door. I went there. It was again a hot class. I was like, I'm not going back to this thing, but she insisted. So I went back, and what happened is I couldn't find the door. I mean, I went to the same place. I couldn't find the door. I think I had so much between PTSD and not paying attention to where I am, my awareness. I was not in my body with kids around me and work and all kinds of things. So it took me, somehow I went back in, and that's how I started meditating, because I went to a Vinyasa class where you work the big muscles, like it's not hot, or at least it's not that hot. And you have flow and you have centering, which invites you to do your yoga, your breathing. And I have been meditating in a yoga class for 15 years now because I got hooked. Even though I had no idea, I was like, how fast can we do this breathing thing so we can go to movement?
We can get out of here with these short blankets.
We end up doing, I end up going, like my body was asking for it. But the actual meditation, I started with you, Barbara, in 2018. I think you started this group with like 5 people, 8 people. Somebody mentioned you from work, and I start following you. And I love that you had this, and you still have this welcoming moments. So it doesn't feel like, oh, you guys sit down, put the blanket on, under whatever, breathe.
It's not a military style of meditation.
That's when I started doing this. I became a yoga teacher in 2018. I think that's when I started too. And the main thing we had to do is that we were supposed to meditate 10 minutes at least per day, because a lot of us didn't meditate. And my thing was like, I'm going to Barbara's class, so I'm all set.
Because that's what we do, about 10 minutes.
Yeah. And then it's kind of accelerated, because once you find your breath, this amazing thing that you have been taken care by this breath your whole life. You and I, when we breathe, we just notice our breath. But what we need to remember and become aware is that we are always breathed, like we are always supported.
Yes.
And I think that gives a lot of comfort. And when we take one moment to see that the breath is there, either I'm holding it, I'm fighting it, I'm allowing it. It's always there, present, because that's my connection with my creator.
Yes. Beautifully put. Beautifully put. Yes.
So, and now I meditate 2-3 times per day. I meditate when I garden, when I walk, during conference calls. I'm in corporate America, and let me tell you something.
Like zone out. Or zone in. Either way, both, depending upon what you're doing.
Yeah, it's the antidote of stress. And where you don't need to allow the not so friendly things to come in. I think it's good to find your breath and really shield yourself with your own goddess.
Yes, that's beautiful. So what would you say has been one of the most surprising aspects of meditation? What's been surprising for you?
Is that it cracked me open. You know how you may drop, like my favorite fruit is, and I actually had it last night, is watermelon. So I'm always afraid because when I drop it, it just spills everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's all so sweet, right? And sticky. And that's what happened with meditation, is like it opens me up. I cannot count the times that I have cried rivers of anger, disappointment, grief, relief, love, comfort, aha moments. Either through the meditation, during the meditation or after. So it's that allowance of letting the light come in, finding your own truth. And a lot of times it's painful. It's not that for me anymore, because I think, as with everything else in life, I have reached a point where I have a good practice. I come to you every day at 6:30, and then I go to David at 8:00. I listen to different apps, and I actually teach meditation when I teach yoga. And I have taught meditation and visualization to different companies and groups of people. And but I think it saves you years of therapy, of uncomfortable sharing, because it brings you to this vulnerable but yet safe place, which is within myself. Now I share, and I name, either it's my pain, my trauma, my disappointment, my shortcoming, what I allowed from the outside world to come in and devalue me. But you can really name it without judgment, right? And that's what meditation does.
Beautifully put. And that is exactly what meditation does. It allows us to be vulnerable with ourselves so we can be more vulnerable with others, right? And then we can come back home to the breath and to know that next feeling, emotion, sensation is going to flow on in. It's going to eventually flow on out. It's just going to flow. And when we really work on going with the flow versus trying to force whatever, it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So what would you say to people who are interested in discovering something new, or discovering or creating a meditation practice, or trying? What would you say to someone about that?
That's a great question, because a lot of times people, I notice, that are very intimidated by the word meditation. I would seek out this method as a method of stress reduction. I'll give you an example. I was in a medical facility this past pandemic that I was going and teaching meditation. And when the leader or the manager said that Constantine is going to come and do meditation, There were people who kicked back because their religion didn't support it, the word. Some of them have thought that meditation is this old practice where you stare at the wall, you find a point, and you do that, and somebody's watching you that you do that.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of misconceptions and misrepresentation. So I would set an intention that I want to find a way to release my stress. And if that means that I would go, and I suggest actually that you seek out somebody like Barbara or a guided meditation, because there is nothing, it's actually getting support when you start something new is a sign of wisdom. It's not a sign of weakness. You get support with your stress relief the same way that if you have a headache, you reach out for, a specific medication. And the promise really, the first, because I'll say this, that in my practice teaching yoga to veterans and some other trauma related groups and regular public, is that we all have this picture that we want to do something big. We want to change ourselves. We want to change our diet, our house, our neighbors, our in-laws, that.
The world. How about you start with you?
The world,
anyway,
right?
It's like, can I start with me first though?
Yeah. So start with you. And the suggestion I have is start with one thing. Don't change. Because if you say, I'm going to eat 3 new foods tomorrow and or do, 25 new exercises or routines, it's not going to start. Start with something, one thing, like turn on in YouTube, in an app, in Facebook, in any social media, turn on a guided meditation while maybe you go for a walk or you wash your dishes. And just listen one time. This is self-care, and it's also one thing you do. And just be open. You may want to go back, rewind, and listen while you're sitting on a chair or lying down or anything. I mean, except driving, I would say do anything. But it's just one thing. See it as a stress reduction.
Yes.
And it's free. And even if you cannot do some sophisticated breathing, just be assured, because your breath is always there.
Indeed.
You are being breathed every single second. And the first time I couldn't follow my teacher, I could do one breath right, I couldn't do the whole sequence because I was, busy judging everything. So.
Yep. That mind.
So just start with one thing, one promise, and then you're going to find what you need. Guided meditation, I think it's the only, it's great. Or you can just go in a sweet little soft place that you feel good, safe. And because that's actually, safety is something that we all need to feel, to go within and close your eyes and see how it feels.
Beautiful. That is a beautiful way to move people into considering it, because it is stress reduction, right? And sometimes you don't necessarily realize that you're reducing stress because we're so used to being stressed, or consider that. Just curious. So Konstantina is from Greece, and I want you to share the name of where you're from and tell what it is, because I think, I love looking at these quote unquote coincidences that we have in life, which are really not coincidences. And I'm going to try to say the name, but I'm going to let her say the name because we were practicing before. And it is Epidavros, which I know. Oh, well, I'm not going to say it more than once. So that is where Constantine is from. And tell us a little bit about that, because I've seen your pictures and I'm just like, I've got to go. I've got to go. The water, I've got to go.
Yeah, so I was born in Greece, and in an area that is an hour and a half or so south of Athens, and very close to the water. I mean, everything's close to the water. But I grew up in an area where we walked, and we actually, when I was in elementary school, it was mandatory to go to a field trip in the nature once a month. So they will take us to this huge archaeological site that had the most amazing theater. Ancient theater, right? All of those things is ancient, from like 2,000 years ago or so.
Yes. Wow.
500, yeah, ancient theater, ancient stadium, excavations going all over, and natural, how do you call it, springs and stuff. And we will play around because they had, a cafe, and we'll run and we'll do all kinds of things as kids do. And the whole area, it's named Epidavros. Epidavros means the energy and the action that around your aura. It's not easy to understand, but Epidavros is a place in Greece that was dedicated to Asclepius, and Asclepius was the son of Hippocrates. That's the father of medicine. And so the whole area and the excavations are still going on at this time. Half of my family works there, and my grandfather helped excavate the theater. Is the first spa or hospital or a combination in the ancient world where they believed that the people who were sick, they had to have they had doctors, and the museum actually has surgical tools there that they found through the excavations. You have to have a combination of medical doctors. You have to have worship. That's why they have temples of Athena and Apollo. You have to have entertainment. That's why they had the theater for 14,000 people. Outside theater. It's an amazing place. They had also, you need to exercise. So they have the stadium, and I have run in that stadium. It's the classic stadium, 400 meters around, because all the stadiums now in the world are mirrored after ancient Greek stadiums. And also they had a practice. I mean, they had hotels, and they had, how do you call it in English? Restaurants. Of course, it's all this. And then they had two other things that I find fascinating. They had a lot of dream. They had people who analyzed your dreams. And yeah, and also they believe that there is a special type of snake that goes around and doesn't bite you, but somehow that snake it was carrying some miracles and some messages, and some people were able to read, and I don't know what.
Wow.
So they had, along with the real doctors, like what we call mainstream medicine in our days. And then what they are working on right now, and one of my cousins actually helped with the excavations, which is, not only national but international. There are like some of the most renowned archaeologists in the world are working still there. It's like, lots of acres. It's a huge area,
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by olive trees and pines. And they have a round area, like it's kind of a rotunda
Mm-hmm.
that had apparently different floors.
Okay.
They think that it was for the mentally ill.
Okay.
But what is interesting is that the there is under the how do you call this thing that we're stepping in a house, like not the stairs, but under the floor, the main floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is some opening that most likely it was situated over caves or something, and people still believe that if you go and you stay over there and you breathe, you're going to be healed because of different things are coming from the earth's
Yeah.
side. So
Interesting.
there are a lot of things that are historically proven, and of course there are like thrills and myths, and that is like not even a mile from where I grew up.
Wow.
So yeah.
So look, so you navigated into this world, and and so I just think it's interesting when we look back where we came from, how it all plays a part in who we are and where we end up. So do you have anything else you want to share before we end? I love your story and how you got into breathing and short blankets. So tell us where we can connect with you, because you can reach out to her at Constantina now, and I'll put all this in the details, for trauma sensitive yoga, as well as advice and meditation. Is that right? And what else?
Yeah, I mean, I do offer trauma sensitive yoga, and I also my meditation is mindful of trauma.
Okay.
And trauma is, I'm not going to define it now, but it's everything that has actually separated us from our bodies.
And that is a very specific type of practice for people who are not aware. So I don't do trauma sensitive. So if you have something that you feel is, that is trauma, that you've been induced with trauma, I would suggest that you work with someone like Constantina, who knows how to manage you around that. I feel like I'm more general and just kind of sit down and breathe, so you can do that. But when you start getting into specific things, I definitely recommend that you talk to someone who has been trained in those particular styles and types. So
absolutely, yeah. And I mean, I do offer trauma sensitive yoga and kind of counseling and guidance, what to do next, because a lot of people have been exposed to trauma.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, it's almost impossible that that we don't have, but the veterans, the sexually abused people, neglect, refugees, racism, all those things are trauma that a lot of times it's epigenetically moved, meaning from one generation to the other.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, we can talk if that's interests you, and see what kind of guidance I can give you for local resources.
Okay.
And the other thing I do is, of course, I do give career counseling, because I'm a recruiter for 22 years in corporate America. And I help people with resume writing and things like this. But I do offer meditation to small corporations, individuals, and I cannot avoid but inserting or being mindful of trauma sensitive or trauma informed. And my wish and my encouragement to each one of you is to really find your breath and find 5 minutes to do one thing that matters. to you, which is close your eyes, because I think if I had to say one thing that that I am for sure in life, is that we are all parts of God, of the divine,
Mm-hmm.
and the expression of this divine in each one of us is found through our breath.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And once we realize that, we will be the best stewardess or stewards or for this body, for this brain, for this mind, and consequently will guard and will protect and honor the other people as well. When we recognize what we say in Namaste, Namaste means I recognize, I see and I recognize the divine in you,
Yes,
in the other
exactly.
person, the same way I recognize and I find that in myself.
Exactly.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you so much. And if you like this video, please feel free to share, subscribe, you know, all the deals. And if you're interested in being a part of this as conversations about meditation, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I am an ambassador for meditation, and I enjoy inviting people to sit down and chat about it, because I have found it to be a life-altering practice for me that starts with your breath. So thank you for tuning in. Be well, and see you next time.